A broken empire seeks a miracle. The Zitharian Empire had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Their fleets were unmatched, their power unquestioned. But war changes everything. Now, the once mighty Zitharian dreadnought, a warship feared across the galaxy, was barely holding together. Its hull was torn, plasma vents leaked dangerous radiation, and the main thrusters were offline. Inside, the crew moved in desperation, trying to keep the ship alive. Primary systems failing. Shields at 12%. Reactor core unstable. The computer's voice echoed through the dimly lit command deck. Captain Voral Kale stood in silence, his golden armor now dented and scratched from battle. His eyes, once filled with pride, now showed only frustration and exhaustion. He turned to his chief engineer, Selric, whose tentacle-like appendages worked rapidly over a cracked console. "Can we restore the engines?" Selric shook his head. "Not with our resources. The damage is beyond our repair capabilities, Captain." Voral clenched his fists. The Zitharian Empire had built its warships to be powerful, not repairable. They relied on their vast network of space docks and elite engineers. But now, they were deep in enemy territory. There was no help coming. A fading hope. The crew sent a distress signal, hoping some friendly fleet would come to their aid. Hours passed. No response. Voral's second-in-command, Commander Threx, whispered the unthinkable. "No one wants to help us. We have no allies left." The truth was painful. The Zitharian Empire had ruled with an iron fist for too long. Now that they were weakened, the galaxy had turned its back on them. A low-ranking officer suddenly spoke up, hesitation in his voice. "Captain, there is one option left." Voral looked at him. "Speak." The officer hesitated before continuing. "There is a human repair station nearby. Red Dock 7. The bridge fell silent. "A human station." Threx scoffed. "You expect us to ask humans for help?" Selric, usually calm, added, "Their technology is primitive. How could they fix a Zitharian dreadnought?" The officer looked nervous but stood firm. "I've heard rumors, sir. They say human engineers can fix anything, even ships beyond repair." Voral sighed, rubbing his forehead. He never thought he'd consider this. The Zitharians had always looked down on humans. They were a young race, barely a few centuries into space travel. How could they have the expertise to fix one of the greatest warships of the Empire? But what choice did they have? The final decision. Voral opened the galactic map and found Red Dock 7, a small independent repair station on the edges of human-controlled space. It was insignificant compared to Zitharian shipyards. Still, something strange caught his eye. The station was never empty. Logs showed a steady flow of alien ships coming in and leaving, fully repaired. Some of these ships belonged to powerful factions, groups that usually never relied on outsiders. Why were so many ships flocking to a human station? A deep feeling of unease filled Voral's mind. He turned to his crew. "We have no other option. Set course for Red Dock 7. Threx hesitated. "Captain, if we go to them, it will be seen as a sign of weakness." Voral's voice was cold. "Weakness is dying alone in space. Move." The Zitharian dreadnought, damaged and barely functional, turned towards the small human repair station, a place that would change everything. As they jumped into hyperspace, none of them could have predicted what awaited them. The arrival at Earth's hidden outpost. The Zitharian dreadnought emerged from hyperspace, its once mighty hull now a ghost of its former glory. The ship groaned under the pressure of reality shifting, as if the fabric of space itself rejected its presence. Systems flickered, and power surged unevenly. It was barely holding together. But what lay ahead was even stranger. The crew had expected Red Dock 7 to be a rundown, forgotten station, the kind of place where scavengers and smugglers lingered. After all, humans weren't known for their technological superiority. Yet, as their ship drifted closer, what they saw defied every expectation. An unusual sight. Red Dock 7 was massive, far larger than what any of them had imagined. A sprawling network of modular docking bays stretched out like an artificial spiderweb in space. Large industrial arms moved with mechanical precision, shifting entire sections of ships as if they were mere puzzle pieces. But what truly shocked the Zitharians was who was already there. Docked at various ports were ships from half the known galaxy, merchant freighters from the Volmeri, sleek warships of the Silari Dominion, and even a few pirate vessels painted in menacing insignias. They were all here waiting. And they weren't waiting for supplies. The Zitharian sensors picked up intense repair work across every platform. Massive ships, some in even worse condition than theirs, were being serviced at incredible speed. Automated repair drones zipped between hulls, welding broken sections while human engineers worked in unison. Some alien crews even stood watching in stunned silence as their ships were not just being fixed, but upgraded. Voral Kale narrowed his eyes. What is this place? His second-in-command, Commander Threx, analyzed the data streaming onto their consoles. This isn't just a repair station. It's something else. Asterisk. A galactic secret hidden in plain sight. A curious invitation. Before the Zitharians could hail the station, an incoming transmission blinked onto their screens. The image that appeared was not a military official, nor some shady smuggler. It was a human. A man in oil-stained overalls, arms crossed, a toothpick in his mouth, and the most casual expression they had ever seen. "You're late," the human said. "You need a full overhaul, don't ya?" Silence fell over the bridge. Voral Kale, an elite captain of the Zitharian Empire, was used to being treated with fear and respect. The absolute confidence in this human's tone was unsettling. Threx cleared his throat, trying to recover. "We have sustained critical damage. We require emergency repairs." The human, still chewing his toothpick, shrugged. Yeah, we saw your ship limping in. Come on in, we'll get you sorted." The transmission cut off. Voral's fists clenched. No proper negotiation. No security clearance. Who do they think they are? Yet, the docking clearance codes were already uploaded to their system, and automated tractor beams gently pulled their ship toward one of the massive repair bays. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Entering the Lion's Den. As their warship docked, the Zitharian crew stepped onto the station with weapons holstered but hands tense, scanning the area. They expected chaos. What they found was organized efficiency unlike anything they had seen before. The station's interior was spotless, despite the ongoing heavy repair work. There was no shouting, no frantic scrambling, only precise coordination. Human workers, some covered in grease, others operating complex robotic arms, moved with speed and skill that rivaled even the most disciplined Zitharian engineers. Voral observed silently as a massive alien freighter, twice the size of their dreadnought, was lifted by human-made support structures. Repairs that should take weeks were happening in mere hours. He turned to Threx. "This is not normal." Then they saw something even more unbelievable. A repair like no other. A Exilari battleship, its power core visibly destroyed, was being fixed from scratch. The Zitharians had fought against the Exilari before. Their core technology was highly complex and supposedly impossible to repair without proprietary tools. Yet, humans were doing it. One of the engineers, a woman with a cybernetic arm, was barking orders. "Realign the plasma feeds. Boost the shield harmonics. Let's move, people. We're ahead of schedule. Let's keep it that way." Voral had seen warlords demand action from soldiers. He had seen empires force their people into submission. But he had never seen engineers lead with such confidence and be obeyed without question. The Exilari captain, watching from a distance, muttered, "I don't know how, but these humans, they've saved my ship." Voral's mind raced. If humans could repair and upgrade alien technology, then what else were they capable of? A warning from the shadows. As Vorel and his crew processed what they were witnessing, an unfamiliar voice whispered through his communicator. "Captain Vorel Kell of the Zitherian Empire, you should not have come here." He spun around, scanning the area, but saw no one nearby. The voice continued. "Human engineering is not just an advantage. It is a threat. If you leave this place, you may live. But if you stay—" There was a slight pause. "You will understand why the galaxy fears them." The signal cut out. Vorel's heart pounded. Something was happening here, something far bigger than a simple repair station, and he had just walked into the middle of it. The secret of human ingenuity. The Zitherian dreadnought was now fully docked inside Red Dock 7, its massive hull barely fitting inside one of the largest repair bays. Human engineers swarmed the ship like insects, moving with an urgency and precision that made the Zitherian crew uneasy. Captain Vorel Kell stood with his arms crossed, watching from an elevated platform. His second-in-command, Commander Threx, stood beside him, observing everything with quiet suspicion. "This doesn't make sense," Threx muttered. "How can humans handle so many different alien ships? Their technology is primitive compared to ours." Vorel remained silent. He was thinking the same thing. Then he saw something impossible. A human fixes the impossible. Near the ship's engine bay, a plasma conduit, one of the most complex and delicate pieces of Zitherian technology, was being inspected by a single human engineer. His name tag read, Jake Dawson. The Zitherian engineers had already concluded the conduit was unfixable. Even their most advanced tools couldn't realign the plasma channels without causing a catastrophic overload. It would take weeks to manufacture a replacement. Yet, Jake stood there, arms crossed, chewing his toothpick, studying the conduit as if it were a simple plumbing problem. One of the Zitherian engineers, Selric, couldn't contain his frustration. "You don't understand. Zitherian plasma conduits operate at harmonics beyond human comprehension. You'll make it worse." Jake grinned. "Oh yeah. Watch this." With a single motion, he ripped out the damaged conduit. Selric screeched in horror. "You just relax, buddy." Jake tossed the broken part aside. "That thing was fried. We'll replace it with something better." Selric looked at him like he had gone mad. "There is nothing better." Jake gave a casual shrug. "That's what you think." Within minutes, he dragged in a human-manufactured replacement, a component far simpler in design. The Zitherian engineers laughed. How could something so crude work? Then, Jake installed it, linked it to the ship's main reactor, and activated the power flow. The plasma readings appeared on the nearby monitor. The original efficiency was 87%. The new human modification, 110%. The Zitherians stared in disbelief. Selric shook his head violently. "That's not possible. That reading must be wrong." Jake tapped the monitor with a smirk. "Numbers don't lie, pal. Humans think differently." Word spread quickly across the repair bay. The Zitherian crew had come expecting basic patchwork repairs, not technological improvement. Vorel Kell watched his crew argue with the humans, their minds struggling to accept what they were seeing. How could an inferior race improve on Zitherian engineering? Jake Dawson approached him, wiping grease off his hands. "You look like you got a lot of questions, Captain." Vorel's golden eyes narrowed. "How?" Jake smirked. "How what? How is it possible that you improved our systems?" Jake leaned against a railing, looking completely relaxed. "See, that's the difference between humans and you Zitherians. You guys build things perfect from the start. Big, powerful, precise. No room for error." He pointed at his own station. "Humans, we build things that survive. We don't aim for perfect. We aim for functional, adaptable, and easy to fix." Vorel clenched his jaw. He had never considered such an approach. The Zitherian Empire demanded perfection. Anything less was failure. Yet, here stood a human who had just proven their way was better. A repair like no other. Over the next few hours, the humans worked like a well-oiled machine. Hull breaches, patched in record time. Power fluctuations, solved with human-designed energy regulators. Reactor cooling failure. Humans installed a backup system, something Zetherian ships never had before. Everywhere, Zetherian engineers argued with the humans, only to be proven wrong again and again. Even Selric, one of the Empire's finest engineers, finally whispered in awe. Their technology isn't advanced. It's just smart. The silent observers. As the repairs continued, Vorel noticed they were being watched. A group of alien captains stood on an observation deck, staring down at the humans with the same expression of disbelief. Among them was Admiral Skeeler of the Tselari Dominion, a war-hardened leader whose fleet had once devastated entire worlds. Vorel approached him. "You've been here before." Skeeler nodded slowly. 3 times. Vorel frowned. "Why?" The Exilari Admiral exhaled sharply. "Because humans are the best damn engineers in the galaxy." Vorel scoffed. "That's impossible. The Galactic Council ranks human technology below every major faction." Skeeler grinned bitterly. "Then why do half the Council's ships come here in secret?" Vorel froze. He had assumed humans were just good mechanics. But now he realized something far more dangerous. The most powerful empires in the galaxy relied on human engineering, while publicly pretending humans were insignificant. Vorel's mind raced. If humans had been hiding their true skills, then what else had they been hiding? A new discovery. A sudden alarm blared across the station. A human technician rushed past with a datapad, muttering, "Damn it, not again." Another Council spy ship got caught snooping. Vorel's heart pounded. The Galactic Council was watching this place, and if they were spying on human engineers, it meant humans were a threat. Vorel turned to his crew. "Get me every piece of information on Red Dock 7. Now." Threx hesitated. "Captain, are you saying?" "I'm saying we may have just stepped into the greatest secret in the galaxy." Whispers in the galactic underground. The hum of machinery, the steady clank of metal against metal, and the occasional bursts of sparks filled the atmosphere of Red Dock 7. The massive human-run repair station was a bustling hub of efficiency, yet something felt off. Captain Vorel Kale watched from an elevated walkway, arms crossed, his mind heavy with unease. The more he observed, the clearer it became. This station was more than just a repair dock. It was a hidden powerhouse, a secret lifeline that factions across the galaxy depended on in silence. Why? Why would the greatest spacefaring civilizations, empires that had existed for millennia, secretly send their ships to humans for repairs? And more importantly, why was the Galactic Council spying on them? An unspoken truth. "Captain," Threx whispered, stepping beside Vorel. His face was tense. "We've gathered data from station logs, unofficial records, and overheard conversations." Vorel raised an eyebrow. "And?" Threx hesitated. "It's worse than we thought." He handed over a holopad. The moment Vorel scanned through it, his breath caught in his throat. Recorded clients of Red Dock 7. Tselari Dominion. 42 capital ships repaired. Volmeri Trade Fleet. 67 cargo haulers restored. Pirate lords of the Typhos Belt. 29 frigates rebuilt. Even Galactic Council escorts. 8 ships serviced. Vorel's grip tightened around the holopad. The Council itself had been using human repair stations. Yet, publicly, they dismissed humanity as an insignificant species, too young and unrefined to be a galactic power. It was a lie. The galaxy needed human ingenuity. They just didn't want anyone to know. The hidden influence of humanity. Commander Threx exhaled. "The repairs they perform here, it's not just fixing things, Captain." He swiped the holopad, revealing before and after blueprints of various ships. Volmeri freighters now had boosted fuel efficiency, running 60% longer than standard models. Xilari warships had reinforced shields, absorbing 30% more firepower than they originally could. Even a Galactic Council cruiser, which should have been classified tech, was found operating beyond its original specifications. Threx glanced at Vorel. They're not just repairing ships, they're making them better. Vorel looked back toward the docks, watching as human engineers moved with casual confidence, solving problems that would take weeks of bureaucracy in the Zitherian Empire. Then realization hit him. The humans weren't just an engineering race. They were evolving the technology of the entire galaxy, piece by piece, the watching eyes of the Council. The moment of revelation was interrupted by a sudden hiss of pressure doors opening. A group of figures in dark robes stepped into the observation deck. Vorel immediately recognized them. Council agents. They were silent, moving with the kind of discipline that spoke of military training disguised as neutrality. Their uniforms bore no insignias, but Vorel knew exactly who they worked for: the Galactic Oversight Committee. One of them, a tall, reptilian being with deep violet scales, stepped forward. His black eyes gleamed with cold intelligence. "Captain Vorel Kale," the agent said smoothly, "I see you have taken an interest in this establishment." Vorel didn't answer immediately. He studied the agent carefully. "And what interest does the Council have here?" The agent's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "You are a smart man," he said. "I assume you have already figured it out." Vorel had figured it out, and that terrified him. The fear of human advancement. The Council agent turned toward the repair docks, watching as Jake Dawson and his engineers worked on a Xilari battleship. "The humans," the agent murmured, "are a problem." Vorel didn't react. He knew when to stay silent. They are adaptable, efficient, and, worst of all, the agent's eyes flickered toward the repair logs. They are improving everything they touch. Vorel remained still. The agent continued. "Imagine, Captain, if every faction begins to rely on them. Imagine if they stop selling their expertise and keep it for themselves." He turned to face Vorel directly. "In time, these repair stations will become more powerful than entire armadas. Wars will not be won with fleets, but with human hands." Vorel exhaled sharply. He had never considered that. Red Dock 7 was already a silent power, controlling the flow of technological advancement without anyone realizing. If humans truly understood their position, they could become unstoppable. A warning given, a choice to make. "You should leave, Captain," the agent said suddenly. "Take your ship, take your crew, and forget what you saw here." Vorel narrowed his eyes. "And if I don't?" The agent's smile vanished. "Then you will be marked." Vorel knew what that meant. Enemies of the Council never lasted long. The Zitherian captain felt a chill settle in his bones. He looked down at the humans below, completely unaware that they were on the edge of something greater than themselves. Then he made a decision. He turned to Threx. "How long until our ship is repaired?" Threx hesitated. 2 more days." Vorel turned back to the agent. "Then we stay." The Council agent's expression didn't change, but Vorel could feel the threat in his gaze. He had just made himself part of something dangerous. A ticking time bomb. As Vorel walked away, his mind raced. Humanity was being underestimated, but for how long? The Council feared them, but why not stop them outright? What was the true power of these repair stations? He had no answers, but one thing was clear. Red Dock 7 wasn't just a repair station. It was a revolution waiting to happen, and Vorel Kale was now caught in the middle of it. A sabotage attempt. Humans don't break. They adapt. The tension inside Red Dock 7 was rising. The air, thick with the scent of welding fumes and ozone, was charged with an invisible storm. Something was about to happen. Captain Vorel Kale stood on an observation deck, watching as human engineers continued their tireless work. Their efficiency, their problem-solving, their fearless innovation. It was unlike anything he had seen before. But beneath the surface of this controlled chaos, he could feel the danger looming. The Galactic Council's spies were here. He had seen them, walking through the station like silent predators, their eyes watching, calculating, and he knew what they were thinking. The humans must be stopped. He just didn't know how or when the Council would strike. Until it happened. A disaster in the making. The Zetherian dreadnought's repairs were nearly complete. Hull integrity was restored. Weapons systems had been recalibrated. Energy output was at 120% efficiency, better than it had ever been before. Voral's crew had stopped resisting the humans' methods. Even Selric, his most stubborn engineer, had grudgingly admitted that human modifications worked far better than their original designs. But at that moment, alarms blared across the entire station. Emergency alert. Critical system failure DDTCTED in reactor core. All PRSO and EL EVHUAKI INMAEDIA. Voral's blood ran cold. From the observation deck, he saw a section of the station's main reactor chamber, a massive, intricate structure that powered the entire facility, start to flicker erratically. Energy conduits pulsed with unstable currents, their normally synchronized hum turning into a chaotic, uncontrolled surge. The Zetherian captain's instincts screamed. This wasn't an accident. And then, the first explosion hit. Red Dock 7 under attack. A section of the reactor detonated in a violent blast, sending a shockwave through the station. Metal beams twisted like vines, and fire erupted along the corridors. Alien ships docked nearby shook violently, their stabilizers struggling to compensate for the sudden gravitational shift. Panic spread. Some alien crews ran for their ships, fearing the entire station would collapse. Others simply froze, unsure of what to do. But not the humans. The humans reacted instantly. Within seconds, station engineers were already rushing toward the damage. Jake Dawson, the human engineer who had stunned the Zetherian crew with his expertise, grabbed a communicator. Fire control teams, get to Section 12B. Tech squads, reroute power from auxiliary generators. Reactor stabilization teams, suit up, now. There was no hesitation. No fear, just action. Voral had never seen anything like it. The Zetherian Empire would have abandoned ship in such a scenario. The Galactic Council would have called for automated safety measures. But humans, they ran straight into the fire. A calculated sabotage. Voral's mind was racing. This was no accident. It was too precise, too well-timed. He turned to Threx. Find out how this happened. Now. Threx nodded and disappeared into the command center, barking orders to his team. Within minutes, the answer came, and it was worse than Voral had imagined. Threx's face was grim as he returned. Sabotage. Voral's fists clenched. The Council. Threx shook his head. Worse, it was the Rethari Syndicate. Voral's eyes widened. The Rethari were a ruthless faction. Cutthroat mercenaries who worked for the highest bidder, if they were here, that meant. The Council had outsourced the attack. That way, no evidence would lead back to them. The fight for survival. Another explosion rocked the station. The fire suppression systems were struggling to keep up. Energy levels were unstable. If the reactor breached, Red Dock 7 would be destroyed. Voral turned to the humans. How do we stop the overload? Jake Dawson didn't even hesitate. We get inside and fix it. Voral blinked. You mean, enter the active reactor chamber? Jake cracked his knuckles. Yup. Voral exchanged a glance with Threx. This was suicide. The radiation levels were climbing. The temperatures were already lethal. No Zetherian would ever consider going in there. But the humans, they were already suiting up. Jake pointed at Voral. You want to help? Then suit up. Otherwise, stay out of our way. Voral made a split-second decision. Get me a suit. Threx's jaw dropped. Captain, Vorel cut him off. I need to see for myself what these humans are really capable of. And with that, he stepped into the fire with them. Inside the inferno, the reactor core was a war zone. Massive energy surges lashed out like plasma whips, scorching the walls. Cooling systems were failing, causing molten metal to drip from the overhead pipes. The air was thick with heat and radiation, setting off every warning in Vorel's helmet. Jake led the team with absolute confidence. His hands moved swiftly across control panels, rerouting power, manually bypassing melted circuits. Vorel struggled to keep up. The human engineers worked at lightning speed, their bodies enduring the heat, their minds solving problems on the fly. One engineer, a woman named Lena, was rerouting cooling vents, while simultaneously coordinating with another team across the station. "Jake, we got a problem," she shouted. "We can't seal the leak unless we manually reset the regulator from inside the core." Jake cursed. "All right, we're doing this the hard way." He looked at Vorel. "You scared of radiation, Captain?" Vorel's mind screamed yes, but he found himself saying, "What do I need to do?" Jake grinned. "Thought so. Follow me." The ultimate test. Together, a Zetherian captain and a human engineer entered the heart of the reactor. Heat waves blurred their vision. The regulator was nearly melted through. The only way to reset it was a manual override inside the containment zone. Jake grabbed a control rod and jammed it into place, forcing the cooling process to begin. Vorel hit the override. Vorel's claws gripped the control panel. His body screamed from the radiation exposure. But he pressed the final switch. The reactor stabilized. The core hummed back to life. The station was saved. Victory and a new respect. As they exited the chamber, the humans cheered. The fires were gone. The crisis was over. Jake clapped Vorel on the back. "Not bad for your first human-style repair job." "Ha." Vorel, breathless, just stared at him. For the first time in his life, he understood. Humans weren't just good engineers. They were survivors. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The ultimate test, an impossible repair job. The Zetherian dreadnought stood within the vast docking bay of Red Dock 7, its once damaged hull now gleaming under the station's artificial lights. The ship had been transformed, repaired beyond expectations. It wasn't just fixed, it had been upgraded. Yet, Captain Vorel Kale found no relief in that fact. The recent sabotage attempt had exposed a harsh truth. The Galactic Council feared human engineering. And now they had sent mercenaries to ensure human ingenuity did not spread. But the attack had failed. Not only had the humans survived, but they had proven their resilience. They had stared death in the face and refused to back down. And now, the galaxy would face a new reality. A new challenge arrives. The station was still reeling from the attack when an incoming transmission interrupted the recovery efforts. Red Dock 7. This is the Xelari Dominion flagship Iron Claw. We require immediate emergency repairs. Our primary systems are failing. We have lost all engine function. Requesting permission to dock. Vorel's head snapped toward the holoscreen. The Xelari Dominion. He wasn't the only one who was shocked. Jake Dawson, the human engineer who had led the reactor repair, raised an eyebrow. "That's a damn Xelari flagship." Commander Threx narrowed his eyes. A ship like that wouldn't ask humans for help unless it was truly desperate. A Xelari warship requesting human assistance. It was unheard of. Yet, as the station's sensors locked onto the ship, it became clear why. The Iron Claw was barely holding together. The impossible repair job. As the ship drifted into the docking bay, the damage was horrifying. Entire sections of the hull were missing. Power fluctuations surged along its length, and internal fires raged, barely contained. The Xelari crew scrambled to extinguish them as they docked. It was a floating wreck. Jake let out a low whistle. Damn, that thing's held together by prayers and duct tape. Vorel turned toward the human engineer. Can you fix it? Jake scratched his head. Depends. What hit them? The answer came from the auxiliary captain himself as he limped out of his ship. His armor was scorched, his expression grim. We were ambushed. The entire bay fell silent. Vorel stepped forward. By who? The auxiliary captain exhaled sharply. The Galactic Council. The Council strikes first. The words hit like a thunderclap. For years, the Council had always acted as a regulatory force, maintaining balance among galactic factions. They had never openly attacked the auxiliary before, and yet here was living proof that they had crossed the line. They came out of nowhere. The auxiliary captain growled. 3 Council battlecruisers. No demands. No warnings. Just firepower. Vorel clenched his fists. He had known the Council wanted control over human engineering, but to attack a Dominion flagship. Jake exchanged a glance with his fellow engineers. The humans had been expecting this, and yet there was no fear in their eyes. Instead, Jake cracked his knuckles. All right then, let's get to work. The human advantage. As the repair teams approached the Iron Claw, the auxiliary engineers hesitated. They were proud warriors, unused to outsiders handling their ships. Jake didn't care. He marched onto the ship, a wrench in one hand and a scanner in the other. All right, show me what we're dealing with. One of the auxiliary engineers snarled. We don't need your primitive. Jake didn't even let him finish. He shoved his scanner against a damaged conduit, analyzed the readings, then muttered, Yeah, that's shot to hell. We'll replace it. The auxiliary bristled. That's proprietary. Jake tossed the scanner to another engineer. Not anymore. We're making it better. Vorel watched in silent amazement. It wasn't just Jake. All the humans worked the same way. They didn't hesitate. They didn't stop to ask for permission. They identified the problem and fixed it. And the results spoke for themselves. Within the first 2 hours, primary energy relays were reconnected. Fire control systems were restored. Structural integrity fields were reinforced with human modifications. By the end of the first day, the Iron Claw was already functional again. The auxiliary realization. The auxiliary crew watched in stunned silence. Their own engineers had struggled for days to contain the damage. The humans had solved it in mere hours. Even the auxiliary captain was shaken. He looked at Jake with an unreadable expression. You improved our systems. Jake smirked. Yeah, we do that. The auxiliary captain's fists clenched. He glanced at Vorel. You knew about this. Vorel simply nodded. And now you do too. The auxiliary leader turned back to his ship, the truth settling in. The humans weren't just repairing ships. They were rewriting the rules of galactic warfare, a dangerous proposition. As the Iron Claw prepared for departure, the auxiliary captain pulled Vorel aside. I owe you for what you did here, he admitted. But you understand what this means, don't you? Vorel nodded. The Council had tried to erase the auxiliary flagship, which meant one thing: war was coming. The auxiliary captain hesitated, then finally spoke the words that changed everything. If war comes, I want these humans on our side. Vorel's breath caught. The auxiliary Dominion had never sought allies outside their empire. They were proud, self-sufficient, and ruthless. Yet, here they were, admitting that humans held an advantage even they could not ignore. Vorel took a slow breath. He had already made his choice. Then let's make sure they survive long enough to win. The storm on the horizon. As the Iron Claw departed, the atmosphere in Red Dock 7 had changed. The engineers had no idea they had just altered the balance of power in the galaxy. But Vorel knew. Jake Dawson knew. And somewhere, in the dark reaches of space, the Galactic Council knew as well. And they wouldn't let humanity rise without a fight. Humanity's rise. The Council's worst nightmare becomes reality. The repair bays of Red Dock 7 were silent, but not with inactivity. A storm was coming. Every engineer, every crew member, human and alien alike, felt it. Captain Vorel Kale stood near the massive viewport, staring into the void of space. The Exilari flagship was gone, repaired, and ready for war. The Zitharian dreadnought was also prepared, now stronger than ever before. But Vorel knew the real battle was yet to come. The Galactic Council would not stand idle. They had sent mercenaries. They had attempted sabotage. They had even attacked a Xilari warship in open space. And still, the humans endured. No, they didn't just endure. They evolved. A warning from the shadows. Commander Threx approached Vorel, his face grim. "We intercepted a communication," he said, handing over a datapad. "The Council has deployed a fleet." Vorel narrowed his eyes. "How many ships?" Threx exhaled. 150. A heavy silence fell between them. The Council wasn't sending a warning shot this time. They were sending an execution force. The decision that changed everything. Jake Dawson sat at a workbench, modifying a power core by hand, his fingers moving with the ease of a man who had done this 1,000 times before. Vorel approached him. For the first time in his life, he hesitated. The Zitharian Empire had always prided itself on power, dominance through superior military might. But humans had no vast empire, no fleets of warships, only their hands, their minds, and their refusal to break. Vorel took a breath. The Council is coming. Jake didn't stop working. "Yeah, figured that much." Vorel frowned. "You don't seem concerned." Jake smirked. "Should I be?" Vorel blinked. Did this human not understand? "They outnumber you 100 to 1. Jake finally stopped, setting down his tools. His eyes met Vorel's, and for the first time, the Zitharian captain saw something terrifying. Absolute certainty. "Let me tell you something, Captain," Jake said, standing. "Numbers don't mean shit if your fleet falls apart mid-battle." Vorel's eyes widened. Jake grinned. "And guess who's been repairing Council ships for years?" The humans had been preparing all along. Vorel and Threx followed Jake into a heavily secured part of Red Dock 7, the place even Vorel hadn't been allowed access to before. As the doors slid open, his breath caught. Inside, humans were working on something impossible. A warship. No, not just a warship. A hybrid warship built from the salvage designs of every faction that had ever come to Red Dock 7 for repairs. Zitharian armor plating, Xilari shield modulation, Volmeri fuel efficiency, human ingenuity in every single system. It was a Frankenstein's monster of pure technological brilliance. Jake gestured casually at it. "Meet the Hammerfall, first of its kind." Vorel's voice was barely a whisper. "How long?" Jake laughed. "We started building it 5 years ago." Vorel's mind reeled. 5 years. That meant humans had anticipated this moment long before it happened. The Council's fatal mistake. The Galactic Council had believed humanity was weak. They had assumed humanity was ignorant. But the truth was far more terrifying. Humans weren't just mechanics. They were architects of war. And they had spent years preparing for the day when the Council would come for them. Vorel exhaled sharply. "Can the Hammerfall fight?" Jake smirked. "That's the fun part. See, while you guys were playing Empire, we were studying every single warship design we've ever repaired. And you know what we found." Vorel waited. Jake's grin widened. "Every ship in the Council's fleet has vulnerabilities." The Battle of Red Dock 7. The moment the Council fleet dropped out of hyperspace, they expected a massacre. Instead, they found hell waiting for them. The Hammerfall led the charge, its weapons firing before the Council ships could even power up their shields. But that wasn't the most dangerous part. The real nightmare came when Council warships started malfunctioning. Engines failed. Weapon systems shut down mid-battle. Shields flickered and died. The humans had built weaknesses into every ship they had ever repaired. And now, they were exploiting them all at once. Humanity's revenge. The Council fleet panicked. 150 warships, reduced to scrap in less than an hour. The Zitharian dreadnought, once a broken relic, now stood alongside humanity as an ally. Vorel had thought he was here to witness the end of humanity. Instead, he was watching their rise. The Council had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humans. The galaxy will never be the same. As the last Council ship retreated, the battlefield fell silent. Red Dock 7 still stood. The Hammerfall was intact. And humanity was no longer ignored. Vorel turned to Jake, shaking his head. "You planned this." Jake stretched. "Nah, we just had a backup plan." Vorel exhaled. He had spent his life believing the Zitharian Empire was the greatest force in the galaxy. But now, as he looked at the humans standing among the wreckage of the most powerful fleet ever assembled, he realized the truth. The future belonged to them. Epilogue. The dawn of a new era. Word of the battle spread across the galaxy. The Exilari Dominion, once neutral, aligned with humanity. The Volmeri Trade Guild, a faction that had been cautious about supporting humans, now funneled resources into their war effort. And the Zitharian Empire. Vorel Kale made his choice. He sided with the humans, because in the end, he understood one thing. The galaxy had just changed forever, and humanity was the reason why.